Welcome to the first character kit guide that's actually on time, this time featuring the brand new old character Meryl Ironheart. Yes, you heard that right. The Meryl from 1.0 standard banner is back with the brand new Vault form, or should I say old form, since that's more accurate to the lore. No one cares. She's here to bring Vault back from the dead, and that's all that matters, unless you're playing Taw for the other very massive reasons, of course. I meant her massive Vault Frost Fortitude railgun sword, of course. Yes, she's Fortitude, but don't let that Fortitude symbol fool you. Just like our previous Vault Fortitude Mimi, Meryl is the de facto main DPS of your team. The only difference this time is that Meryl even allows you to do very respectable damage alongside Mimi in a Fortitude comp, while also providing buffs to your team at the same time. How does she do this, and will it save Vault? Let's find out together in her kit. Meryl's Shatter is excellent at 16 and her charge is 14. Meryl's weapon, Siege Edge, is primarily a main DPS weapon, but can be a sub DPS buffing weapon if we get a better main DPS weapon in the future. Since her damage is split pretty evenly between the different sources of basic attack, skill, and discharge plus passive damage, so for Titan stats, either basic attack or skill should work. Perfect for the Vault mains who already rolled for basic attacks, but also suitable for Frost mains who rolled on skill damage. Meryl's Railgun Sword is a Vault Frost weapon with the passives Force Impact, Vault Frost Fusion, both Vault and Frost Resonance, and Swift Cut, which deals damage after using discharge skills, all similar to previous weapons with the same effects, which I won't elaborate on anymore. It does, however, have an additional unique effect called Sensory Transformation that gives it different effects when her weapon transforms between a greatsword and a longsword when doing basic attacks. The first few hits of her basic attack chain are performed in greatsword form, with each hit giving her a 2% max HP shield, stacking up to 10% max. The last few hits are in longsword form and provide electroblade stacks indicated by the stack counter in the buff bar. Once you get 5 stacks, the indicator will change and give your next skill double the damage, and some additional effects if you're running the Fortitude Resonance, but we will talk about that later. Regarding basic attacks, the only thing here relevant for damage purposes is her 5-hit basic attack chain. Everything else, like the different branch attack hold combos during her attack chain, although looking pretty cool, don't do much in terms of damage, but they might be relevant for PvP purposes. But who even does that anyways? The aerial attack combo is also pretty bad with multipliers cut in half in comparison to the ground combo, but it does build up her passive stacks a little bit faster, so it might be useful for faster rotations down the line when she's no longer the main DPS. Finally, her plunge attack transforms her into her sword as she flies diagonally down, pretty similar to Rubelia's plunge in terms of speed and distance. However, still nothing can compare with Rubelia, as Meryl's plunge consumes significantly more stamina. Still good for mobility though. Oh right, since her weapon is also a cannon, you can hold an attack and do a ranged charge shot. Damage is cope, but good to aggro and lure things from a distance. Meryl's dodge attacks are divided into directional, non-directional, and a dodge hold. The first two deals pretty much no damage, so don't use them. Her dodge hold, however, is pretty unique as it can charge up to 3 stages, increasing in damage. The last stage of charge can also execute non-boss enemies when they go below 30% health, useful for new players when dealing with elites in the open world and climbing bygone mob floors. Meryl's skill itself is straightforward and just does damage with a pretty big multiplier, but her being Fortitude means there's a Fortitude Resonance exclusive effect on it as well, giving teammates 10 seconds of hyper body on cast. If you also built your 5 stacks from her basic attacks, the skill in Fortitude will also be able to gather nearby enemies and reduce 10% of the resistance for 20 seconds. Pretty significant for team play. Finally, Meryl's Discharge skill charges up her cannon to do a massive charge blast, and it functions just like all other weapons by clearing negative effects, dealing damage, and granting some iframes. However, there's actual additional effects on this one that makes it mandatory to cast, as it buffs your Vault attack by 10% for 20 seconds and puts you in a 22-second Electromagnetic disruption state that gives you hyper body, 500 additional weapon charge when using any Vault weapon skill, and the ability to trigger chain static at a 25% chance per Vault hit that does damage to up to 7 targets with a 1 per half-second trigger interval. Targets that are defeated will also trigger chain static with a 0.1 second cooldown, but that's not as relevant. And once again, there's also a Fortitude effect for this Electromagnetic disruption state, allowing you to taunt nearby enemies every 2 seconds automatically, while also gaining a refreshing 20% max HP shield. Finally, if you are not in Fortitude, so Attacker Balance or Benediction Resonance players, you will instead inflict a 20-second 30% speed reduction debuff on targets hit by Meryl's weapon. And that's it for her abilities. Let's move on to Meryl's stars. The 1-star effect adds a 1 in 4 chance to trigger an additional Magnetic Tempest hit that does 10 times the original damage of a chain static proc from your Discharge passive, with a 2-second built-in cooldown. On top of the additional passive damage, you also get a weapon charge effect when switching off the weapon while in the Discharge buff state, giving you 100 charge every second for 400 maximum. This charge seems pretty random, but it is absolutely crucial for you to have a smooth rotation through your weapons when doing DPS. Without it, an A0 Meryl player would have to be stuck on the offhand weapons for an extra 4 seconds per rotation, significantly reducing your DPS, as 4 seconds of downtime equates to 20% of your supposed 20-second skill cooldown DPS rotation. Through testing on CN, the A1 provides a whopping 40% damage increase over A0 and a much smoother rotation. Not an absolutely necessary star to get, but pretty close to being absolutely necessary. However, the good news for the free-to-play players that don't have A5 Ray is you're going to be doing Ray basic attacks or time dodge attacks to build their special energy bar anyways, so the 4 seconds of downtime for both weapons kind of align with each other anyways, so I guess you can cope with A0 and just do 24-second rotations. Moving on, the 3-star effect unlocks the ability to build your special energy bar, indicated by the icons next to your food hotkey, which can be done by doing hits with your cannon form shots, so the ranged hold attack, the back dodge, or the dodge hold, which are all pretty much never used. But don't worry, you can also build special energy through other vault weapon skills or discharge casts. So what does this bar do anyways? When it's fully charged, your next discharge skill will consume the energy and give you an enhanced electromagnetic disruption discharge passive. During the enhanced state, your original 25% chain static proc chance is buffed to a 100% chance, and your A1 passive's 25% chance is also buffed to a 100% chance. Sounds massive on paper, right? But in reality, since Vault does so many hits anyways, this only ends up being about a 20% damage increase overall through my rough testing on CN. So it's not absolutely necessary to get the A3, although there's plenty of other pretty massive non-meta reasons to get the A3, so you might as well, right? Oh, also, your special energy bar starts off full when you begin combat as a QL feature, so you don't have to worry about that one. Now that the complicated stars out of the way, the 5-star effect is just a dead simple 30% final damage increase to your team that works even in the background, no strings attached. Seems brutally simple and usually an effect reserved for 6 stars, but Meryl gets it at 5. Get it if you can afford it, I guess. Finally, the 6-star effect goes back to wall of text mode, but it basically just says now your 2 passive damage effects, Chain Static and the A1 Magnetic Tempest, deal double their damage, while in the A3 enhanced state, another fairly significant damage boost. The usual get if whale star, not much explanation needed here. Besides the damage, since this is a once in a blue moon fortitude weapon, they gotta milk that one tank player that's still somehow trying to make tanking relevant. This time, the fortitude effect provides you and your nearby teammates a 20% damage reduction and a 20-second 20% of your max HP shield. Pretty good for high difficulty Origin of War, I guess. I don't tank, but I know that if you are a tank main, you definitely should have saved up enough resources to A6, so might as well. Now let's take a look at our matrices. The 2-piece set simply increases vault damage. Note that again, there is no frost damage here, and we are way past that phase where matrices benefited both elements. The exclusive effect of the 2-piece set is a crit damage buff for every chain static hit, up to a maximum of 4 stacks of 20% crit damage. A very rare and significant buff, especially on CN, where everyone is at 100% crit rate. But thanks to global balancing of the crit stat on our gears, the crit damage loses in its efficiency, but it's good to have nonetheless. Moving on to the 4-piece set, and starting off with the bad news, the 4-piece set's offensive bonuses require her weapon to be present on the team, meaning that her matrices are essentially useless if she is not being used. This is a drastic change from previous matrices design, where at least half of the effects are still present when their exclusive weapon isn't part of the team, but unfortunately this time is not the case. Moving past the Doom posing, the 4-set effect is really strong, providing a vault attack buff and a pretty much permanent dot effect when your Magnetic Tempest A1 effect hits. Do note that you do need the A1 on the weapon to get the dot, so don't try and do A0 weapon and 4-piece and wonder why you aren't proccing the dot. Again, for fortitude weapons, there's effects here to milk fortitude players on the matrices as well. This time, it's a crit chance buff to yourself and a crit resistance shred for nearby enemies. Kind of a weird choice to give a tank a crit chance, but it ends up working pretty well, at least on CN, as now fortitude mains actually do damage, but we will have to see for global. The fortitude effect, as it reads, seems to be universal and can be attached to any weapon, but after testing on CN, only her exclusive weapon can activate the crit buff in fortitude, so it seems to be a bug or just poor wording. For pull advice on these matrices, it can be argued that without a universal 4-piece effect, the long-term value of these matrices ends up being rather low, but on the other hand, with the banners slowing down significantly, giving players way more time to save resources and way more time until the next few weapons come around to replace Meryl from the meta, the exclusive effects on the matrices don't seem to be that bad of an option, especially after considering the fact that she is a Fortitude weapon with Fortitude matrices effects that would be relevant pretty much forever, as it turns into another utility option for tanking as she gets power crept out of the DPS meta. For Meryl's Simulacra trait, she gives the usual 18% fatal damage like all traits, but her unique effects are crazy. 1000 weapon charge when entering combat, so basically an entire weapon charge bar for free, allowing you to discharge immediately. Then you get another 13% vault damage buff if Meryl's weapon is equipped. Then, if Meryl's weapon is the active weapon, you also do a 250% AoE dot every second. Then, if you're also in Fortitude Resonance, your shatter is also increased by 50%. So basically, if you're using Meryl, you use her trait, and that's it. There's no other options, and better go farm her gifts. For Relic Selection, since Meryl's optimal rotation is 20 seconds, which doesn't match well with Koan's 30-second burst rotation, we instead use Dice and Control Gun for the Relic. For global players, the usual suspects of Elastic Heart, Bubble Gun, Overdrive Shot, Mask, or Control Gun should all work. For the free-to-play without Battle Pass relics, just stick to the usual Con and Shield or Rift. Meryl's new weapon kit may look pretty complicated with the huge walls of text, but actually she's quite simple to use. As the main DPS weapon, all you need to do is buff first with the 2 other weapons and discharge into Meryl. Don't jump cancel it, by the way, and then proceed to do auto attacks. Yes, you want to hold your skill cast for until after you build their passive stacks, so you get double damage on the skill. Once you do an entire auto attack sequence, the last attack indicated by the falling lightning animation, or you can just pay attention to when this buff bar stack changes into this icon, then you can safely cast her skill for the double damage. Then continue to do auto attacks until your 20-second cooldown other buffing weapon skills are back up, rinse and repeat. Now here's a quick demonstration of the maxed meta CN team consisting of Nola, Meryl, and Ray in action. Start on Nola with over a bar worth of charge on your weapons. First cast Nola's skill, then immediately discharge into Ray. Proceed with Ray's skill, then immediately discharge into Meryl and proceed to do one full basic attack sequence. Then cast Meryl's skill and do more basic attacks until Nola's skill is about to be off cooldown. Then switch back to Nola and jump cancel her discharge, skill, and the rotation loops from there. Again, if you don't have A5 Ray or A0 Meryl, you just sit on Ray for a few seconds to build discharge and Ray's special energy, preferably with Ray's time dodge attacks, before discharging into Meryl to continue the rotation. It's a 4-second time loss, but what can you do? And that's it for her rotations. The same logic can be applied to every buffing weapon when played with Meryl, so I won't be going over the other rotations. Finally, let's talk about all the other Meryl teams for those players that missed the collab and don't have Ray, or new players still getting by with the standard weapons, or even those players that didn't pull for 3-star or higher Nola. We start off with the ideal team with Meryl as the main DPS weapon. For buffing or off-field DPS weapons, the best choices are Nola and Ray, but any buffing weapons can be good alternatives, like Yanoa, Nanyin, Mimi, Zeke, Rubilia, Fiona, Fenrir, Tian, Lin, Nemesis, Claudia, Crow, or Tsubasa. Yes, even Mimi, which puts her into a Fortitude comp, will work quite well, at least this was the case on CN. The only vault weapon that doesn't work with Meryl is Brevi, since the devs decided that she only buffs frost damage when off stage for some reason, so don't use her. For frost mains, or any mains for that matter, that really like Meryl, unfortunately she doesn't have any synergy with other elements, even frost. But she's a really good start to your brand new Vault team if you do pick her up, especially for frost mains. Since you already should have gotten Nola, you can do perfectly good damage pairing her with Yanoa and Nola. For matrices setups, again, the most optimal is everyone using their own 4-set matrices, of course. But if you don't have other limited matrices and only pulled from Meryl 4-piece, you want to put her 4-piece on any of the other buffing weapons, since the matrices effects work completely in the background. If you didn't pull for her 4-piece, any background matrices from the below list can be put on your 2 background weapons, 2+2-piece altered besides Nola, Ray, Yanoa, Brevi, Mimi, Rubelia, Fenrir, Tian, Scylla, Habola, or Shira. For the main DPS weapon, so Meryl, you should use your typical main DPS setup 2-piece Lyra plus 2-piece Samir. Alternative 2-pieces include any relevant 2-piece limited, or Shiro, Crow, Cobalt, Habola, or Scylla. Overall, Meryl is the first post-version 4.0 Vault Team character and also the first character variant of an existing character in Tower of Fantasy, is pretty strong and definitely brings Vault back into the meta. With a not too complicated playstyle where you gotta fully utilize all of her abilities in a set sequence to maximize damage. On top of that, her being Fortitude Resonance gives her a lot more long-term potential compared to other DPS Resonance weapons, especially the fact that you can still do damage even if Fortitude Resonance is amazing and opens up tons of team building opportunities and makes tanking even more relevant than before. However, her basic attack 5-stack passive only being able to stack during the last few hits of the basic attack sequence does make her gameplay a little bit awkward in non-ideal scenarios, like when your target runs around and you miss a hit and don't get full stacks off of one basic attack sequence, which puts you in a lose-lose situation where you either choose to do half damage on your skill or waste time doing a few more auto attacks to build stacks, which then delays your rotation. All in all, I'm personally pretty satisfied with how Vault came out, but do you think Meryl saved Vault, or do you not want to pull a reskinned character? Or maybe you're finally making the decision to switch elements? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for this kit review. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Good luck on our pulls and have fun with our dorm content.